Hello, wonderful humans. Welcome to another episode of Low Carb in the Leaves with me. I am Dr. Mary Barson from Real Life Medicine. And this week, I have been talking about self-care and about sharpening your saw. Discussed this proverb yesterday where you come across a person in the woods who is frantically trying to cut down a tree. They look absolutely beat, sweat dripping off them, and you notice that they're not getting very far. They're frantically sawing away, but the tree is not getting any more cut down. And you suggest to this person that perhaps they should take a moment to just take a break and to sharpen their saw, because their work would go much easier. And they say to you, I can't possibly stop to sharpen my saw. I am too busy sawing. And I think a lot of us can find ourselves in a similar situation. We're so busy living our modern lives that we don't take time out. Good morning, everybody. That we don't take time out to care for ourselves and to renew ourselves. I also talked about on Monday about how we have these stories in our heads, these narratives that we believe, and we are actually in control of our own narratives, and we don't have to believe the stories in our head. I'm having that this morning. Had a little bit of a rough night last night, just had a little bit of a flare of pain. Nothing serious, I'm going to be absolutely fine, but it was annoying and I didn't sleep very well. So I'm tired this morning. I'm tired, and yet I've got just as much stuff to do on any other Wednesday that I do, and it's a lot of stuff. And my instinct, the story in my head, is that I just have to do it. I just have to get through and do it all. I just have to suck it up and bear it and just get through all my work, get through all my domestic tasks. And I'm just reflecting on this story in my head. This is deeply ingrained in our society. I think that self-care is considered a luxury. Sometimes it's considered selfish. We just need to keep going no matter what. Our working lives are set up so that taking time off is pretty difficult. Parenting duties don't stop. Also, it's part of my medical training. Definitely drummed into me as a junior doctor. A bit more sensible these days. But as a junior doctor, you just had to turn up. There was no other option. They would jokingly, but not jokingly, say the only excuse for not turning up to work was being dead. And even then they wanted proof of death before they would accept that. So there's all these stories in my head as I'm sitting here quite tired this morning. And I'm looking through the stories in my head and realising that a lot of them aren't real. There is a lot of things that I can reshuffle, that I can postpone, and that I can perhaps downgrade so that I can have a bit of rest today. And that isn't being selfish, even though it feels like it. It's being sensible. It's just some self-renewal. So that means I can turn up tomorrow as a more effective version of myself. So self-care is this, I guess it means lots of things to different people, but to me, it means choosing good food. It means making the healthy choice, consistently trying to make the healthy choice, as well as taking time for this self-renewal. And that is probably the part that I struggle the most with, taking time for myself. But when I do that, I am better, I'm less reactive, I'm less likely to need to binge and eat sugary foods to try and cope with my feelings. I'm just a much better version of me. So today I thought I would talk about the science of why self-care is so important, why it is important to take some time, I would say time each day, for some self-renewal, time for yourself, for reflection, for meditation, for even just having a little break, reading a book, time to yourself where you allow yourself to decompress. And it all comes down to this very, very pervasive and pretty much ubiquitous force in our lives called stress. Stress is everywhere in modern life, definitely. We humans evolved to deal with stress in the short term. So humans in the wild humans of, 15,000 years ago, genetically identical to us, they got stressed when they were being chased by a predator, or they got stressed when there was absolutely no food left in the cave and they had to go and find some. And their lives were probably most of the time, they were in fact just quite calm, quite relaxed, and then they had times in their lives that were punctuated by severe and acute stress, short-term stress, and it was great for them. Short-term stress help them survive, and so we have evolved. We're the same as those people, it's just that our modern environment is really mismatched to our genetics. We're meant to be kind of calm and chilled most of the time and have these periods of short, sharp stress. But it's when these periods of short, sharp stress actually become more chronic, when we're no longer stressed about being chased by the odd saber-toothed tiger or the bear, but we're stressed every day because our colleagues are unhelpful. We're stressed every day because the mortgages are due. We're stressed every day because of paying for school fees or difficulty with our children or whatever it is, the twice daily commute. Whatever it is that is causing us stress, when it becomes chronic, it really deranges our metabolism terribly. And there often is not a lot that you can necessarily do to avoid all stress in your life, but you can take some time out to nourish yourself and decompress so the stress becomes less toxic. But long-term stress is definitely worth avoiding. It is worth sharpening your saw to avoid it because it causes high blood pressure, which increases your risk of lots of diseases, including heart disease and strokes. Long-term stress makes the blood more clotty. In the short term, this was useful. This was useful if you got bitten by a bear 15,000 years ago. You'd get very stressed, and the stress would make your blood a bit thicker, which was good to prevent you from bleeding to death back then when you were bitten by a bear. But nowadays, this sort of long-term tendency for the blood to clot with chronic stress increases the risks of strokes and heart attacks, DVTs, pulmonary embolies, things that you definitely want to avoid. And also stress induces insulin resistance. And again, in the short term, 15,000 years ago, a human being chased by a bear, this was good. In that short term, when we get this rush of stress, our body becomes resistant to the insulin in our system, which means that our muscles and other organs aren't using the sugar. They're less likely to want to use the sugar, or they can't use the sugar. So the sugar accumulates in the bloodstream, which means there's more available for the brain, which is great when you have to think fast and find the best escape route and decide what you're going to do in an acute stressful situation. But if you are chronically insulin resistant, then that is very bad. And it is that contributes to the development of type 2 diabetes, of metabolic syndrome, of obesity, high blood pressure, harmful cholesterol profiles. We get more of those small, dense LDLs, which are the atherogenic plaque-forming types of LDLs. Really not good. And stress also raises your blood sugar because cortisol causes your liver to release blood sugar, which then causes you to release insulin long term. So stress causes both insulin resistance and increased insulin, which is a double whammy for metabolic disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, weight gain, and a whole lot of bad things. Also, and I see this a lot, is that long-term stress actually causes lots of hormonal imbalances in our bodies. A lot of our hormones, including the sex hormones, are made by the same building blocks as our stress hormone, cortisol, these pregnenolone building blocks. And if the body is busy making lots of extra stress hormone, then it's got less building blocks, less raw material, if you like, to make the other hormones that it needs, like sex hormones. And so long-term stress can lead to a whole lot of hormonal imbalances, which contribute to a wide variety of hormonal issues, including lack of libido and probably increasing menopausal symptoms as well. And also can affect every other hormonal system in the body as well, including thyroid and all the other hormonal axes as well. Also, stress affects gut function quite badly. It can induce intestinal permeability. It also decreases blood flow to the gut. And this is great short term, being chased by a bear. It's not that important that you are digesting your dinner. More important that you've got blood flow to your heart, lungs, muscles and brain to sort of be able to move and think your way out of the situation very quickly. But this prolonged sort of it diverts attention away from digestion, stress does. And if this attention is diverted away from digestion for too long, it can lead to digestive complaints like constipation, bloating, irritable bowel syndrome, lots of different things. Also, long-term stress can affect our memory. It can actually possibly even kill parts of our brain that are involved in memory and may contribute to Alzheimer's disease. In the short term, it actually kind of increases our thoughts, but long term, increases our ability to think, but long term actually starts killing off bits of our brains. Also, emotionally, when you're acutely stressed, you're hyper aware, looking out for threat everywhere. Again, this is a wonderful survival strategy when being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. But if you're stressed every day because of mortgage or whatever, if this stress becomes long term, it makes us more prone to anxiety. And we can start to worry about everything and start to see threat and danger everywhere, start to get hyper vigilant, hyper aware, and that is not a happy place to live at all. And also, finally, I'll end on inflammation. So stress causes short-term inflammation. That's my daughter. I'll be with you in a minute, my love. Stress causes short-term inflammation. Oh, sweetheart, she's a bit stressed. I'm sorry, man. You'll be right. Daddy's there. Short-term inflammation fires up our immune system, which is wonderful if we've got to fight off an infection from being bitten by a bear. But inflammation long-term, if it becomes chronic and unresolved, then that is at the heart of almost every chronic disease that exists, including anxiety and depression, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, obesity, lots and lots of things. So that's kind of the science of why taking some time out to sharpen your saw each day is extremely important for your health and wellness. I'm needed elsewhere. I better go. See you later, guys. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day. Bye.